There's more evidence against this guy than there even is against Karen.
Why did you say, listen, I didn't do anything wrong in this?
Higgins is doing something at that bar 30 minutes before John O'Keefe is allegedly killed. There is a conflict between Higgins and O'Keefe. There are weird text messages between Higgins and Karen Reed.
I kissed gay Jeff.
Including that night, and between Higgins and John O'Keefe.
Are you coming here? Followed by 3 question marks.
They didn't sue any of the lesser people, if you will, that were inside the house. The most obvious omission was Colin Albert.
Fuck you, KO, bang bang.
Only because of some of the things that have been alleged about him in the past.
Was that your statement or not?
It was my statement then, but I've thought about it, yes.
And you've changed your statement somehow?
What did you think about who they sued, who they left out? He was asked, no Colin Albert, are you guys going to prove who actually killed John O'Keefe?
Brian Higgins.
We'll start with the state police. Whoa, celebration. What did you think about their attempt to consolidate all of this together, handle it with the wrongful death car accident case in state court?
The handsome lawyer you know and our favorite, Mark Bederow, were on discussing the Karen Reed case. Let's watch.
A little surprised. I mean, I think most people thought, at least initially, that they were going to launch a nuclear federal 1983 suit against certainly the state police. The takeaway from the court appearance is all these people are being sued. Some people believe, well, why not just do it and see what happens? Put it out there to see how the court would respond, and maybe that gives them guidance on, are they going to file it that way, or are they going to file a separate lawsuit?
Mark's discussing Karen Reed's lawyer's decision to not sue in federal court and to bring all the claims in the civil court for which she's being sued.
From the plaintiff's attorney's point of view, I would not have expected them to do it this way and try and consolidate it into this wrongful death claim, because it is very unusual. It's not how it would normally be done. This would be normally filed, like we said, as a separate federal lawsuit. I understand the argument of all the facts are inextricably intertwined. And for Karen Reed, this would be much more judicious to handle it this way, but not necessarily for literally anybody else involved.
If all the lawsuits are consolidated into a single claim, it would be much less expensive for Karen.
For the O'Keefes, this makes it much more difficult. For all of the new Karen Reed defendants that she's suing, it makes it more difficult to come into this case as well. Can you think of what reasons why Karen Reed's team would want to do it this way in state court versus federal court, and then vice versa for the other side?
If they're able to drag, I mean, Proctor is a perfect example, into this, not only are they alleging that he committed all of these civil rights violations and, you know, we should be compensated for all of that, but it goes part and parcel to her defense in the civil action. If she didn't cause John O'Keefe's death, then she can't be accountable for it. If they introduce evidence that, you know, Proctor planted this evidence.
Access granted, Brian Higgins, booking to Sallyport, booking to Sallyport.
In the first trial, we made the major mistake of believing it was Proctor that planted the evidence. Now we know that it was Chief Berkowitz, who has since died, an old Higgy Bear, that conspired to plant that evidence.
And there's no record of you exiting.
Higgy Bear staring at a document that indicates he swiped his card, allowing him access to the Sallyport on the day that Karen Reed's SUV arrived.
That's just booking to Sallyport.
Yes. I don't, yeah, there's no record. I don't know if it records you going up. That's fine.
There's no record of it, correct?
We see how nervous Higgy Bear is. He's answering questions even when one is not posed.
Not that I can see here, no.
And you're aware that that's about 90 minutes before Karen Reed's SUV was delivered to that Sallyport, correct?
No, I'm not aware of that.
Are you aware that her car ended up in that Sallyport where you were at 5:36?
I'm aware her car ended up there, yes.
You and Chief Berkowitz were moving in and through, at least in some parts of the day, in and through Canton PD together, correct?
At some points we might have been together. We weren't together all day.
Do you see the way Higgy Bear answers a tough question compared to when Colin Albert does?
Were you threatening Advantage Boys guys, whoever they are?
Yeah, kinda.
Were you threatening them with violence?
Kinda, yeah.
It's so obvious that one of them is guilty.
Matter of fact, he was also in the Sallyport around the same time you were, correct?
I don't recall that, no.
The last time you're logged into the Sallyport, it's 4:07. Do you remember seeing Chief Berkowitz at the Sallyport at 4:14?
No, and if that says that I'm logged, that could be me cutting
Mr.
through.
Higgins, all I'm asking you, I'm not asking you what you did. I'm asking you where you were.
I don't know where I was at that specific time.
Well, you walked into the Sally Port. We know that.
If I walked in,
Correct?
cutting through, yes.
Right. Was Chief Berkowitz in the Sally Port at 4:14?
Not that I recall, no.
Was he there at 4:30?
I don't remember ever seeing him in the Sally Port, no.
Was he there at 4:33?
I don't remember ever seeing Chief Berkowitz in the Sally Port.
At 4:50. Finally, was he there at 5:36 and 37 seconds at the same time Karen Reed's vehicle was delivered?
I don't remember.
Old Higgy Bear was just so certain that he never saw Ken Berkowitz in the Sally Port with them. Then all of a sudden, he doesn't remember.
Did you tell those law enforcement agents that you saw Brian Higgins and Chief Berkowitz go into the Sally Port together and alone with the SUV for a wildly long time?
That was my recollection at the time.
So you did say that?
At the time, that is what I recollected.
And thanks to Officer Deaver, we now know it was Kenny Berkowitz and old Higgy Bear in that Sally Port breaking off pieces of that taillight, which will eventually find its way to 34 Fairview.
Leave Kenton PD until close to 6 p.m. Isn't that right?
I don't know what time I left.
Could it have been 5:50, 6 o'clock?
I don't recall what time I left.
Were you in the Sally Port at 5:36 when the car was delivered?
I don't have any recollection of that, no.
Now, all of a sudden, Higgy Bear has no recollection of being in the Sally Port with old Ken Berkowitz when that SUV arrived.
One thing to say I don't remember, it's another thing to say no, I was not there.
I don't remember being there, no.
Is it possible that you could have been there when that car was delivered?
I don't believe I was, no.
You don't believe you were?
I don't believe I was, no.
It helps prove that he violated her civil rights, but it also destroys the claim against her. I mean, it affirmatively kills the argument that she caused John O'Keefe's death.
When you hear the word affirmative, that means that the defendant is going to prove something. The burden is going to shift to the defendant, and they are going to prove something that will make them not liable for the plaintiff's claims.
They bring in Brian Higgins and they put out, he had a stronger motive to do this because of his romantic whatever. They get 2 for 1, proving their affirmative claims, but they're also wiping out the plaintiff's claim. So I get it, and I think it does make sense in that regard.
Give some minor hints at what he thought about it, calling it a novel argument.
And who wants a monster trial like that with that many people? And how do you even do it logistically? I couldn't tell the size of the courtroom from watching TV, but it's a logistical nightmare if there's that many people.
Well, they were filling the jury box because Karen Reed had 10 lawyers there just representing her. Then you have the Waterfall and CF McCarthy's, you have the plaintiff's lawyers, and then if you're going to bring in a Higgins and Albert and McCabe, lawyer for Tully and for Proctor and everybody else, I think, what did they say, 10 more defendants?
And it's also very interesting that they sued really early in the process. Before the trial, they filed a claim. And
they thought they were going to get some benefit from that. They just never did. But now,
if you're the lawyer, you've got to be nervous. Obviously, if Karen gets convicted, res judicata, home run, right?
Bederow is referring to the fact that Karen was sued in between trial number 1 and trial number 2. If Karen Reed was found guilty, then the plaintiffs would not have to prove that she was liable. They can rely upon that decision of her being criminally guilty because the burden of proof is higher in a criminal court. However, since she was found not guilty, they can no longer rely upon anything with regard to the decision of the jury in the criminal trial.
That's why you do it. You look like a king then. It's easy. You get your money and you move on.
Although Karen's defense team had no burden at the criminal trial, they paraded in an army of professional people, engineers, medical professionals, and they kind of proved that they're scientifically and from an engineering standpoint that what's going to be the plaintiff's theory and what's the prosecution's theory doesn't wash. The prosecution in the criminal case gave it their best shot. They got clobbered in trying to undo the medical and engineering testimony, and they spent what amounts to $500,000 on an engineering firm that made a clown show out of this, and that was the best they could find. So, what are the O'Keefes going to do in a civil context? And they're going to have to put forth all the lawyer is, all the resources, hoping for a payday, and I'd be concerned.
If the O'Keefes retain their attorney on a standard contingency basis, that means the attorneys are going to have to pay for all the experts, and there's a chance if they win no money or they get nothing in settlement, they're going to lose out on any money advanced on behalf of the O'Keefes.
As a matter of financial business.
What did you think about who they sued, who they left out? Any surprises to you as far as the list we heard?
Proctor, Buchanan, Tully. I mean, that's a ground ball. The McCabe's and Alberts and Brian Higgins. Yeah, I think that's all a ground ball. It seems clear to me that those would be the right people if you're going to do this and allege some kind of cover up. I mean, they didn't sue any of the lesser people, if you will, that were inside the house or, at the bars. One could say that the most obvious omission was Colin Albert.
Fuck you, KO, bang bang.
Only because of, some of the things that have been alleged about him in the past and whatnot. But he's not there.
As the evidence has shown, Colin Albert had nothing to do with the murder of John O'Keefe. We know who the real murderer is.
Brian Higgins.
And that's who we're going to focus on. If Karen's attorneys believe that Colin Albert even had a little bit to do with the murder of John O'Keefe, he would be named. Otherwise, it would be legal malpractice to leave him off.
And yeah, I want to talk about both the things you said. So first, we'll start with the state police. Whoa, celebration.
I mean, the questioning for these people will be, I think, a lot more intensive in a deposition than it would be at a trial. And as you said, God knows where it leads.
A deposition is simply questioning a witness under oath before a trial starts. At a deposition, you can basically ask anything you want so long as you're not harassing or asking a privileged question. However, in this situation, Karen would also have to be deposed too.
You can't harass, you can't, invade somebody's privacy and things like that. So I expect some objections like that. But generally speaking, it's so broad, especially in civil court. I mean, here we can do depositions and felonies as well. So we have that they didn't have in this criminal case in Massachusetts on the state level. Questioning at trial is completely different. The cross-examinations couldn't be more different than what they're going to do at deposition. Alan Jackson, Karen Reed's team will be taking the deposition of Proctor. It's not like Proctor's lawyer takes the deposition and then Karen's lawyers cross. No, the opposing lawyer is the one that takes the deposition, asks all the open-ended question. He was asked, no, Colin Albert, are you guys going to prove who actually killed John O'Keefe?
Brian Higgins.
He kind of gave a non-answer, but also kind of said no.
And the reality is overwhelming evidence of credible proof that there was no collision. But that does not translate to what happened. But if they can convince the civil jury that there's not a preponderance of the evidence that Karen Reed did it, we think that there is a good faith basis that these people might have done something. That still helps prove your point, but you're not taking on that extra step of confusing the jury and making them reach a decision. And some people think that was one of the problems that happened at the first criminal trial.
It certainly was. In the civil case, all you have to prove that it was more likely than not that someone other than Karen Reed killed John O'Keefe. In the first trial, we incorrectly forced Colin Albert as being the main culprit. And we also thought that John O'Keefe died after being beat by multiple people. He was only hit with one punch, and we know who threw that punch.
Brian Higgins.
I mean, some of the people believe that they did bite off more about, we'll tell you what happened, and that might have sent the jury, the first jury, sideways a little bit in trying to solve the crime. Yeah, rather than right. The existence of reasonable doubt. Now, look, if you had a videotape of somebody either admitting killing John O'Keefe or a video of a different car running him over.
But what we do have is the video of Brian Higgins threatening John O'Keefe 23 minutes before he is killed.
Go all in, clearly. Sure. But, I mean, you know what? The reason you haul Brian Higgins in is because, look, there's a lot of weird things. You don't have to prove it, but Higgins is doing something at that bar 30 minutes before John O'Keefe is allegedly killed. There is a conflict between Higgins and O'Keefe. There are weird text messages between Higgins and Karen Reed.
I kiss gay Jeff.
Including that night, and between Higgins and John O'Keefe.
Yes, I said, are you coming here with three, followed by 3 question marks.
That night, Higgins goes to the police precinct doing weird things at 1:30 in the morning. He's making weird phone calls. He does weird things with his phone. They're going to put all that out there.
Did you receive a flurry of phone calls from Brian Albert and Chief Berkowitz indicating that some taillight pieces or a taillight piece had been recovered at 34 Fairview later that evening?
No, I don't remember any phone calls like that.
Do you remember 3 minutes later getting another call from Chief Berkowitz at 6:16 that lasted about 5 minutes and 15 seconds?
No.
There was a call at 6:12 that Brian Albert made to you And right after that, there was a call from Chief Berkowitz to you at 6:16.
Yes.
And did you testify at the other hearing that, in fact, what was discussed was the substance of the taillights being found at the location?
No, that's not what that was in reference to.
By the time you interviewed with Trooper Proctor, you had already had numerous conversations with Brian Albert. Is that safe to say?
Well, the interview was with both Trooper Proctor, Trooper Bukes.
Because we have studied Higgy Bear in his natural habitat, we know when he's being deceptive, and I hope now you all can see the difference between Colin Albert and old Higgy Bear when they're testifying.
Buchanan. Of course, I've talked to Brian Albert because of what took place.
Higgins, that was a yes or no question.
Yeah, of course I've talked to him, yes.
Okay, and the answer is yes, right? Can we agree?
The answer is yes.
Thank you. By the time you spoke with Trooper Proctor, you had already had numerous conversations with Chief Berkowitz. Is there a reason you don't want to answer that question?
I don't have a problem.
Objection, Your Honor.
So, is there a reason, or why don't you go ahead and explain?
Well, I feel he's trying to make it sound like something it wasn't. It was.
I'm not trying to make it sound like anything, sir. I'm asking a question. Had you discussed this case or the issues surrounding this case with those folks?
I did discuss things when I went back to the house, yes.
And that was before you met with Trooper Proctor and Trooper Buchanan?
Yes, that's correct.
You had already spent an enormous amount of time at Canton PD. We've just gone through those records. Is that right?
I have been at Canton PD, yes.
At some point on February 4th, Chief Berkowitz called you to personally inform you that he had personally found taillight at 34 Fair.
In addition to planting a few pieces of taillight behind the dopes, Yuri Buchanan and Trooper Proctor's back, the old Chief Berkowitz was able to actually plant even more taillight weeks later.
Right?
He did tell me that, yes.
And to be clear, that's the same Ken Berkowitz that you were with in the Sally.
I don't recall being in the Sally Port with him, no. I don't know if it was a specific question. I was asked a series of questions on how the phone calls came in. That's what I was asked.
And your answer was, it's 100% probable that I told him about that, meaning I told Brian Albert about my conversation with Ken Berkowitz.
Alan's reading from the transcripts involving the FBI investigation where we know old Higgy Bear was very honest.
Correct?
It's possible.
Was that your statement or not?
It was my statement then, but I've thought about it, yes.
And you've changed your statement somehow?
I don't know if I changed my statement, but I think the way the phone calls came in is Brian Albert told me, you're not going to believe what was found on the front lawn. And then I believe Ken Berkowitz told me he found the taillight, and I'm referring to the taillight from the both of them.
You said yes 100%, correct?
In that testimony, I did, yes.
And then in that testimony, you went on to say, I'm not hiding that fact, but you're asking me if I recollect specifically. If that's when Chief Berkowitz told me listen, I didn't do anything wrong in this, correct?
That was the statement I made, yes.
Higgy Bear is scratching his nose because he's under stress. When he was being questioned by the FBI, he became very, very defensive, showing us that the only thing thin on old Higgy Bear is his skin.
Why did you say, listen, I didn't do anything wrong in this?
Why'd you say that?
Because I felt they were being accusatory, and I was trying to explain what was going on. And what I had said over that was, I believe what I said, something to the effect, I can't be 100% positive. And then when I went on to say, it's probable. But I felt like they were being accusatory, and I was trying to explain how the phone calls came in. I've had time to reflect about it after that, since that testimony, and both that information about the taillight that was found was provided by each person. I didn't provide any information to anybody.
Next question. Thank you. You said, look, I didn't do anything wrong in this because it looks like you and Ken Berkowitz were colluding to provide information to Brian Albert.
You better believe they were.
Correct?
Objection.
Is that correct?
Absolutely not correct. That's
And
wrong.
you knew that was going to look like collusion, which is why you said, look, I didn't do anything wrong in this.
But that doesn't mean they have to say it proves he did it, but it certainly supports their claim on top of the other evidence that by a preponderance Karen didn't. And you know what? This guy, there's more evidence against this guy than there even is against Karen.
That was a great interview by the handsome lawyer you know with Mark Bederow. They're not stopping, and neither we, until we find the real killer,
Brian Higgins,
and bring him to justice. As we established in the beginning, there are only 10 potential people that could have possibly killed John O'Keefe. After we eliminated the McCabe's and the kids, we were left with just Brian Albert, Higgy Bear, and Chloe.
I didn't do it.
Since Chloe's a good dog with an alibi, she didn't do it. That leaves just Brian Higgins and Brian Albert. But of the two Brians, only one had the means, motive, and opportunity to kill John O'Keefe, and that's our old cuddly but violent Higgy Bear. This case was very simple to solve once you had all the data because there was a very limited amount of people that could have potentially killed John O'Keefe. This video, along with every single other video that we produce, is being sent to the Massachusetts State Police and the FBI, and we are not going to stop producing them until the real killer,
Brian Higgins,
is brought to justice.
I kissed Brian Higgins the other night. I love you, gay Jeff.
I didn't do it.
Do.
I had nothing to do with John's death.
I told you I didn't do it.